30 seconds and counting. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds. Guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening to my viewers in Europe and Africa. Good afternoon to my viewers in North America and the Western Hemisphere in general. And good morning to my viewers in the Pacific Rim. Welcome to the Angry Astronauts. Got some interesting developing news. Don't necessarily know if this means that we have an orbital launch coming up really soon, but it's possible that we could be seeing a launch of Starship within the next 8 or 9 days. Just real quick, want to see where people are checking in from, of course. Ohio already, and we have Devin. Hello, thank you very much for checking in. Really do appreciate that. Let's see here. People seem to be, hello, Mars Embassy. I hope you're doing well. Okay, yeah, apparently the audio's been turned up. Brooklyn, hello, and once again, thanks very much for joining us today. Mars Embassy, Ontario, Cornwall, Oxfordshire, Southampton, hello, in Northumberland, Basel, Switzerland, Guernsey, I guess, Channel Islands, boy, I probably mispronounced that one, West Pennsylvania, Reno, hello, in Belgium, and Kent, UK. Where else do we have? We got Cincy, Ohio, Statesboro, Georgia, Seattle, Bulgaria, hello, Four Marks, UK, South Georgia, New Jersey, Germany, hello, Budapest, hello, Illinois, Oklahoma. Wow, lots and lots of people checking in. John Depker, thank you so much for those 5 Angry Astronaut memberships. You got a membership. You got a membership. You got a membership. What this means is we've got, you guys have access to our Discord server now, also access to early releases on the channel. And you can do that either by signing up through Patreon or hitting that little button. Either one will work. Italy, and we have Ohio State Prison, Mellow Clifton, and we also have Copenhagen. Boy, everywhere around the world. Really do appreciate everybody checking in today. You guys are awesome. Again, it's just one of the wonderful things about the internet. Looks like we have people even checking in from as far away as Taiwan. So let me go ahead and give you an idea of what I want to talk about today. Number one, I want to talk about what appears to be imminent. Now, it's hard to say exactly when, but nevertheless, there are certain signs, telltale signs, similar to the ones that came right before the Starship launch in April, suggesting that maybe we might have something coming. However, this situation is radically different from last time. Last time, all we had was the FAA's considerations. Fish and Wildlife, everybody else had already made their opinions clear in the PEA. That's really all they had to handle. Now, at this point, things are different. Now, Fish and Wildlife has a hell of a lot to do with this issue. However, they also announced that they don't anticipate that they're going to be taking that 135 days that they were originally thinking. So here's what we're hearing thus far. Apparently, and bear with me for just one moment here, we got pop-up ads interfering with everything as we always do. So on November 6th, This is again, a lot of Coast Guard updates come in, but this one's a little bit more interesting. Between 5:25 a.m. and 11:15 a.m., rocket launching operations are scheduled to take place near Boca Chica Beach, Texas. Backup launch dates and times include each day following November 1st, 2023, between 5:25 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. until conditions permit the launch. Now, I don't know if conditions permitting include the whole fish and wildlife issue, but that may be built into this announcement. Mariners operating offshore in waters east of Brownsville, Texas, are advised of the scheduled rocket launching activities and associated hazardous areas which may impact navigation. Apparently, I dropped for a second. I apologize. But navigation hazards from rocket launching activity may include free-falling debris and/or descending vehicle components under various means of control. Mariners should avoid all waters within rocket flight trajectories originating from launch sites in the vicinity of Boca Chica and Brownsville, Texas. Now, that once again, doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a launch anytime real soon. We've been getting those kinds of Coast Guard notifications on a regular basis for a while now. However, what we didn't have quite as much is the deployment of the WB-57 high altitude imagery support aircraft. That also has been scheduled for some sort of activity. So that being the case, but once again, we need to be clear. Just because NASA puts a placeholding date for the WB-57 on the calendar, that doesn't mean that they're definitely going to be deploying that aircraft to watch a launch. Again, we really need to be careful about reading too much into this stuff because that sort of thing has happened before as well. As a matter of fact, a Twitter group that I'm fond of that talks a lot about Starbase, about the potential upcoming launch dates, etc. They actually put a ban on all WB-57 announcements because there were so many red herrings as far as that was concerned. So once again, I'm not saying that this is that we're going to have a launch on November 9th. I think that, but however, these signs are the sorts of things that came up prior to the April 20th launch, and generally what it tends to mean, or what it's meant in the past, is that stuff is happening. Things are imminent, and I think that it is very reasonable for us to expect a launch in November, sometime in November, or perhaps early December. Will the live stream be broadcast only on X? Matt, man, that's a good question. It's possible. But here's the good news. We will be rebroadcasting the X broadcast regardless. So if you want to check in, and by the way, I'm sure everybody else is going to be doing that too, NASA Spaceflight, everyone. But nevertheless, we will be rebroadcasting the SpaceX broadcast right here on the Angry Astronaut if you want to join us here, regardless of whether I'm there or not. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put in my own personal plugs at this stage, as I'm afraid I'm compelled to do. Really, I'll be honest with you guys. I ask for your support too often, and it really bothers me. I'm not blind to this. And the reason it's happening, as I've mentioned a number of times in the past, YouTube is absolutely pulling the rug out from under us on monetization. This month is most likely going to be the worst month that I've ever had. At least since I had maybe 1,000 subscribers. It's that bad. And it's not because I didn't get people watching. I got about 500,000 views. However, It's just because the advertisers aren't paying for YouTube. This may spell the death of YouTube, by the way, in the long run. It's kind of hard to say. So that being the case, that those 5 little memberships that just got put on there is very helpful. Really do appreciate that. And if you want to support this trip to Boca Chica, it's in the description. PayPal, or you can join on Patreon, or you can even throw super chats in here. Any one of these things would make a big difference. And apparently, we still have issues with. We're having issues with YouTube right now, and producer is at the moment bitching at them, and so he should, because they're already taking a nice chunk of my money away at the moment and not compensating me like they used to. 10 quid from Alan O'Donnell. Really do appreciate that. How far will Starship Launch 2 get? Maybe past the Kármán line. I don't think it's going to get much further than that. And here's why. They've had to make lots and lots of modifications to this rocket, lots and lots of changes that weren't there before. And that being the case, then, especially the hot staging thing, the hot staging in itself is very dangerous. The whole concept of lighting those engines up before the separation is really even complete. As a matter of fact, lighting the engines on Starship, those Raptors on Starship, is part of the process of the 2 stages separating. That being the case, I think there's a very strong possibility that things could go wrong with that. And if that happens, Starship won't even get past the Kármán line. So, it's kind of an open question, but my guess is that the best we can hope for from this second launch is to get past the Kármán line. I would be shocked, and by the way, thrilled, regardless of what it means for any bets or tattoos or anything that I might be getting. I would be thrilled if Starship could actually complete its orbital flight on the second attempt, to actually get back and splash down somewhere near Hawaii. If we were able to pull that off, I would be so happy. Because as a lot of us know at this point, if you have watched the video that I just released today, if you're talking about getting back to the moon, it's Starship or nothing. NASA has essentially painted themselves into a corner by not taking an alternative to Starship that had any chance in hell of getting to of rather being ready to go in any sort of reasonable time frame. There is no way that Blue Moon will be ready to take human beings to the surface of the moon in less than 10 years. No way at all. So very, very frustrating indeed to know that. But yeah, Starship is where it's at for Artemis. Artemis is doomed without it. So once again, for those of you who are just joining, what appears to be the case at the moment is it looks like we're looking at a Starship launch sometime in the vicinity of November 9th, if all of the recent announcements and postings between the NASA WB-57 calendar and the U.S. Coast Guard announcement, if all of that comes through. Another interesting fact is the Fish and Wildlife Service have been kind enough actually to announce that they find it highly unlikely that they're going to be taking 135 days to complete their analysis. They're saying that they intend to expedite their evaluation. Now, there could be a complication in all that, though. And let me tell you what it is. The problem with what the Fish and Wildlife Service is the most concerned about is the water deluge system and the water cool plate thing. All of the water that pumps through what is essentially an active construction site, that is something that has a lot of environmental repercussions, or could have a lot of environmental repercussions. So as a result, if the Fish and Wildlife Service decides that there needs to be some things added to the launch site, then that's going to make a big difference. It could involve a lot more construction in the area before they're going to give the green light to the whole thing. Let's see, what do we got here? Oh, hello, back to you, Dave, from London. I was just in London a couple of days ago. I'm definitely going to be in the area. John, thank you so much for the $10. Once again, to reiterate to everybody, and I want to say this, and I want to say this with all seriousness. I ask for your support too often. I simply do. And I really feel bad about that. And the reason I do, as I said before, is because YouTube has been slashing advertiser revenue more than ever before. And as a result, this month is likely going to be the worst month I've ever had, at least since I became a channel with more than 10,000 subscribers. It's hard to believe, at over 500,000 views, and yet it's just pathetic. So as a result, it's not like I'm in any kind of financial trouble or anything, but if I want to make this trip, again, I'm asking for support, and I really do appreciate it because it's not something I like to do at all. Michael, thank you so much for the $20. Really do appreciate it. The recent testing of S-26 and more cryo testing of B9 gives questions if SpaceX has adjusted the ignition sequence for OFT-2. Yeah, that is a very good point. I mean, lots and lots of changes have been made to all of this and to Starship. There have been tons of modifications that have been made, and really the modifications that they've made to this particular stack may not even be the modifications that they need in the long run for the overall project. They may have to make different well, I'm almost certain they're going to have to make different modifications after OFT flies. JR, thank you so much for the $50. Really do appreciate what everybody's doing today. Once again, there are many ways to contribute, and super chats are certainly one. And then also in the description, if you want to go the Patreon route, or PayPal, it's deeply appreciated as well. Okay. So, this is going to be an ongoing and obviously an ongoing developmental process. The stack that's going up now obviously is not the final product at all. There's still going to be a lot of other things happening. And also, it's going to be very interesting to see these new and different versions of Starship coming out as well. That's very exciting too, because as we have seen, they have come up with a number of Starship prototypes that have no flaps, no fins, that sort of thing. Are those Lunar Starship prototypes, or are they fuel depots? Because they're going to need a fuel depot in order to get Starship to the moon. So that's going to have to be launched as well. Will they launch it with fuel already in it, or are they going to launch it empty and then have to fill up the whole thing and then utilize it obviously to refuel Lunar Starship? All of these complexities involve lots and lots of launching, and it's going to be a lot easier to complete this cadence of launches that will be necessary to complete Artemis 3 if they have 2 launch sites. If they have Boca Chica as an active and regular launch facility, which right now it isn't. The PEA only allows for a handful of Starship launches per year. There's going to have to be some modifications made if they're going to make Starbase into a place where we're going to get a really fast cadence of Starship launches. But if we can launch from Boca Chica at least sometimes and then launch out of the Cape the rest of the time, that gives us a real possibility of getting the number of launches that will be required to refuel Lunar Starship so we can get it all the way to the moon. Because let me tell you something, it's going to be an uphill battle in order to make all of that happen. Simon, thank you so much for the $5. There's nothing modest about that donation, man. Believe me, if I got that kind of donation from 1% of my subscribers, my problems would be over. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. 1, 2, or 12. Thank you so much for the tenor. I hope there are less engine failures this time. Yeah, that is another serious consideration. Is Raptor 2 even going to be reliable enough in order to be serviceable for the commercial version or the final version of Starship? Probably not, from what we're seeing thus far. We're seeing entirely too many engine failures. This, by the way, was the bane of N1. This was a problem that N1 had over and over again for the 4 times that it launched. Oftentimes, the issues, not all the time, there were other issues besides engines, but nevertheless, there was never a launch where they didn't lose at least a couple out of those 30 engines while it was making its ascent. And certain types of engine failures are far worse than others. An exploding engine obviously will blow up the whole damn stack, and that is obviously what we do not want. But the more engines you have, 33 engines, that's 33 shots at something going wrong. Michael Maxey with $10, really do appreciate that. Should SpaceX resume suborbital hops to test HLS landing gear design? Michael, absolutely. I've been saying that for a while, actually. That is absolutely something that they should be doing, because they're going to, and they need to land it on something other than a landing pad. Argo, thank you so much for the tenor. Really do appreciate that. And that's your 5th super chat on a live stream. Thanks so much for your generosity. So yeah, I mean, that's a consideration that we definitely need to be focusing on. I mean, why is SpaceX not doing this? Doing a hop, and by the way, the PEA allows for those kinds of things, what they call suborbital launches. We could do some of these hops, right now, actually, once you got a go ahead, that is. And you don't even have to use the full stack. You can just launch Starship itself, bring it back down, and then try to land it, even though you are not landing in Boca Chica in the same way that you would land on the moon. Obviously, gravity is different. You have an atmosphere, therefore, you have to do the belly flop maneuver, whereas Starship on the moon isn't going to have to do that. Settling down on a landing pad, or even better, settling down just on the ground, would be a great way to see what the best configuration for landing gear is going to be. I think that's very impressive. Angry Astronaut, am I at home? Well, yes, I'm at home. Britain is my home. But no, I'm actually in a Airbnb still, although while I've been getting things straightened out in terms of getting a long-term apartment. But I'll tell you something, this place has been fantastic. My landlord, if you want to call him that here, he really likes me being here. It's a very reasonable place to stay. And man, I love this place. I really do. This is an awesome place indeed. Mike, thank you so much for the $10 New Zealand. That's your first super chat ever. Man, really do appreciate that. Boy, I'm going to mispronounce this. Yali boy, and boy, I tell you, I don't know what I'm doing there. $10 to the tattoo fund. Yes, once again, to remind everybody, if Starship actually does complete a successful orbital test, and by successful, means it needs to get to Hawaii and at least try to land there, splash down, whatever. If it does that before Vulcan Centaur can deliver Peregrine to the moon, I will be tattooing SpaceX fanboy on my butt, because man, I was super confident that Vulcan Centaur was going to be flying in May. I was super confident that Vulcan Centaur, boy, John with 5 more Angry Astronaut memberships. Dear Lord Almighty, you get a membership, you get a membership, you get a membership. Once again, to remind everybody, if you hit that join button, you get access to our Discord server. There are many hundreds of people on there now, but a lot of them have a lot of deep connections into the spaceflight industry. Really knowledgeable. As a matter of fact, all of my team members are on the Discord server, and that's where I get a lot of the material for my videos, a lot of the technical stuff, a lot of the in-depth analysis. A lot of this comes from my team members on Discord. Fantastic people, let me tell you. We have 589 members on Discord right now. My God, that is mind-blowing. Matt Svensson, thank you so much. Really do appreciate your generosity. That is also your first super chat on a live stream. Boy, I'm really honored that we've got so many folks who are contributing for their first time on any live stream, and they're doing it here. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for your help. Once again, this is what's going to enable me to make the journey not only to Boca Chica, but also I intend to be present for the Vulcan Centaur launch, because I'm going to get a front row seat for that one. Astrobotic, as you know, and I have a very close relationship, and really looking forward to working with them, visiting with them, and watching the launch real close up through with these folks. So definitely some good things coming here in the near future as far as watching launches are concerned. And this is in spite of the fact that I'm in the UK. As I promised to all of you, even though I'm moving to Europe, that doesn't mean that I can't continue to bring you coverage. Christmas Eve is the scheduled Vulcan launch right now. And yeah, Michael, you're right. It's looking more and more promising about a Starship beating. Are we continuing to have issues, producer? Just saw a couple. Okay. I'm getting pauses. Guys, you might want to refresh your browsers if you're continuing to have issues here, because I know I am. I'm seeing issues rather while I'm monitoring this. So yeah, go ahead and refresh the app, guys, if you're continuing to have issues in watching this live stream. That would be your best bet. And once again, sorry about these issues. It appears to be a YouTube related problem. But in any event, we're doing our best to continue to bring this stuff to you. All right. So once again, really, yeah, we're buffering every now and then is what Theodore says. And I think that's right. And yeah, it does look very likely, I think, very, very likely that Starship is at least going to attempt to launch before Vulcan does on Christmas Eve, assuming, of course, that Vulcan does launch on Christmas Eve. Looks like that there's at least going to be a launch attempt. Oh, good. Thank you very much, Alex Labs, for saying that. Just joined 60 seconds ago. No issues. Just refresh your page. Okay. Thanks very much for your contribution there, Alex Labs. Okay. So yeah, I think it's very likely that Starship will launch in November, and therefore will launch before Vulcan gets a chance to on Christmas Eve, assuming that that actually happens. I think it's very likely that that's going to happen. But once again, Vulcan Centaur has to work with a very narrow launch window. When you're going to the moon, you have to pick very particular days, and the only days that are really available to them are Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas. Other than that, they're going to be looking at mid-January for the next attempt. And in the meantime, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, it's looking likely that a Starship launch will be taking place in November. However, does that mean that Starship is going to successfully complete an orbital test? I think that that is a massive question mark. And right now, my money is still on Vulcan Centaur. And the reason is I don't think this second stack is going to be able to successfully make it all the way to Hawaii. I really don't think so. I think it'll be lucky to get past the Kármán line before one of these new modifications that they made actually goes south. However, that being the case, I think it will still launch, and that's a very good thing, because for those of you who have seen the video I just released today, Starship is our only bet. That's our only chance for getting to the moon at this point. Greg, thank you so much for the $5. Just want to share the wonderful birth of my baby boy on the 25th. Wow. Future angry fan and just in time for Starship OFT-2. Absolutely, Greg. I will continue that. And congratulations. Like I say, speaking as a proud and happy father myself, even though both of my kids are now at university, there's nothing better. and becoming a parent. There really isn't. And this is coming from a guy who didn't want kids. Man, I didn't want kids. So I'll tell you something. After the first 6 weeks of terror was over with, I never looked back, and what a wonderful experience it was to raise my son and my daughter. So once again, congratulations. Very happy for you indeed. So once again, to reiterate what announcements have been made lately and what this might mean. The Coast Guard is putting up another notification for November 6th, 2023, between 5:25 and 11:15 a.m. But the Coast Guard makes these kinds of notifications on a pretty regular basis. The interesting thing is, though, that we have the addition of the WB-57 high altitude research aircraft for imagery support. The launch is now being put on their calendar too. Once again, that doesn't mean that a launch is imminent. This could be simply a placeholding date for WB-57, that they've done those sorts of things before. But nevertheless, it is an interesting new development that wasn't happening with previous Coast Guard announcements. This is a new development, and that's an exciting thing. Also, as I mentioned before, Fish and Wildlife Service now saying that they don't anticipate that they're going to be taking that full 135 days. That means one of, I think, three things. Number one, obviously, they're doing things a little quicker for the benefit of future spaceflight. That's very good. I'm glad that they're taking that position. Number two, it also suggests that an approval may be imminent as well, because the Fish and Wildlife Service, I mean, why would they rush this process and announce that they were rushing it if they were going to give a negative response? I think it's likely that we'll get something positive. However, the third possibility is that the Fish and Wildlife Service is going to find some kind of problem with that deluge system. And if that happens, then some additional construction may be necessary at the launch pad before SpaceX is going to get the green light to go. So to give you my honest opinion, I am cautiously optimistic that there is going to be a launch sometime in November. That being said, however, there are a number of things that could complicate that. So we are looking at a launch in less than 2 weeks if all of this holds up. And even if it doesn't, we're looking at a launch in 30 days maximum. That is my prediction based on the current information that we have. I hope it holds up, really, in spite of whatever bet I may have made, and tattoos and all that. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that Starship moves forward quickly on its development path, because without Starship, Artemis is doomed. I think it became clear to just about everybody, and I released that information today. And if you haven't watched that video, please check it out, because I went into a lot of detail as to why Blue Moon is a problematic lander, why we can't really expect it to be developed quickly anyway. Graham, 20 quid. Thank you so much. You're absolutely fantastic. Really, really do appreciate the generosity of everybody today, because believe me, I am eager to head out to Boca to see this launch. I'll tell you, yeah, Macy's Thanksgiving Day launch. That would be super cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be an awesome thing indeed. So guys, keep your fingers crossed. Let's hope for a November launch. And until this thing actually does get off the ground and we start making the moves that we need to make in order to get back to the moon expeditiously, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.